What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show right here on Second City Gridiron. Follow at Second City Gridiron on social media for all your Bears news. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hopefully, you're joining us live and seeing our lovely faces right now. Feel free to comment as well. Audio-only versions available on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. Like, subscribe, tell a friend or two, follow the homies over here. Great articles from our cohorts written up as well at Windy City Gridiron, at WC Gridiron on social media. Making Monsters, Bear and Balanced, Bears banter, the list goes on and on. Keeping up with the Bears, all the great programming we have here on Second City Gridiron. I am Evan Mack, as always at The Real Evan Mack, joined by my co-host. He's pumped, Trump, greenlit Rush Hour 4. He is engrossed in the great Chicago chicken debate of Uncle Remus versus Harold's. Makes one hell of a green bean casserole. He is at Ross Reed on social media. It's Ross Reed, folks.
Yes, thank you. A great intro. I'm gonna go. I go Harold's, and I definitely don't make a green bean casserole.
What's your big contribution?
I deep fry the turkey, so that's a
big contribution.
It is it's the biggest of the contributions. So that is a job within itself to A, make sure that the turkey gets fried correctly, and B, make sure you don't burn down your house, and then C, just the grease is just I feel like I'm smelling grease for like up until Christmas. That's the downside of it, but it comes out amazing every year.
Yeah, that'll do it, man. How long have you deep fried the turkey? And I assume you'll never go back to traditional.
I don't. I have not. I'm not a huge turkey fan as it is. So the deep frying is the only way that I can really consume it. I've been doing this now for about 4 years and everybody loves it. So it's perfect. My mother will season the turkey and do everything that needs to be done. And she just drops it off to me. And I open up the garage door on a nice crisp fall day to air it out and get the grease nice and hot, drop that sucker in there, and I checking on it periodically while sipping on some Coors Lights and checking football and see when that sucker is done, and then you got to pull it out and carve it up and let's go.
God damn, that gives me anxiety, but good for you, Ross.
It's not fun.
But it is
I feel like one of the doctors on the pit every time I'm like trying to dissect it and pull it out. And
yeah. That's all the contribution you need, though, brother. I like it. Today on the show, of course, we're talking about the Bears improving to 8-3. We will dive into the injury report. We'll talk about a shortish week for the Bears as they prepare for the Eagles on Black Friday, and then go around the league with the NFL, look at injuries, contenders, pretenders, as we tend to do, and talk about some other stuff and things, more Thanksgiving talk. Look at our very festive banner. If you're watching us live on YouTube, that's the perk of watching us live, right? And again, feel free to comment in as we go through the show. But to begin, I mean, Bears 8-3 never felt so good. Hit me with it. Let's talk about the continued trend of bad defense, though, as is tradition. And I wouldn't say bad. Bad is like, if you're fully healthy and you're allowing 40 points, that's one thing. This Bears team is just injury riddled, which leads to more points than you would think from this Dennis Allen defense, and more points that we're, I don't know, I guess used to, but it's been a long slog, even with a lot of starters in and out. But injury riddled for sure. When you got the news before the game, a couple days before that, Tremaine Edmonds was going on IR. No Kyler Gordon, no Jalen Johnson not making it off IR, no Noah Sewell, no TJ Edwards. Ross was, doing up downs, getting ready to suit up, but Ben Johnson would not allow it. And Ruben Hippolyte, was ready to make a start. He got hurt in the game. Crazy. DeMarco Jackson. What's that, Ross?
He got crushed by the
he got messed up. I know. I saw the replay today, and it was brutal again to see that. He just felt like a sack of potatoes. But DeMarco Jackson, I'll talk more about him in a minute, but he had to step in to the tune of 15 tackles. Amon with 14 tackles. Jaquan Brisker stepped up. Kevin Byard and Sean Wright with another crazy interception. He's having a hell of a season. He's probably getting paid this offseason, whether it be the Bears or not, who knows. Montez Sweat Old money bags, Mr. Sweat with some big sacks, count them 2, 3 tackles for a loss. He was inches away from doing even more damage. He really stepped up. Defense by no stretch good, but there were moments against the Steelers where you saw, Kenneth Gainwell break free. The one like where you had the Bears or you had the Steelers pinned within the 5 early in the first half. Then they go 95 yards basically to score. They've made some adjustments. I think obviously, the scoreboard's still rough when you look at it allowing 28 points. But, more importantly, the theme we're seeing um, is that you look at Caleb Williams and the rest of this and this offense as a whole, really stepped up and carried the load. It was an awful play where Caleb fumbled the ball, the strip sack in the end zone, where TJ Watt, surpassed his brother on the call, which was a cool moment. Again, JJ Watt, I think to the tune of 115 sacks to JJ's 114 and a half, something like that. Just when, just an aside on that, JJ Watt, remembering the ridiculous career he has and what a game wrecker he was in his prime. Now for TJ to surpass him like this and still have some football left to play. I mean, he's still a game wrecker. I know it's a down year for him this year, but you saw it right there against Caleb Williams. Caleb just fumbled the ball. Didn't know what to do with it. Only sack he took all day, though. And from there on out, it wasn't his most accurate day. He still probably had a couple throws that he wanted back. Completion percentage has been pretty mid. But he finished with 3 touchdowns through the air. He was able to put and not to mention lead a drive that finished with a Kyle Monungai touchdown. Huge improvement where I feel like he wasn't scrambling as much as in the previous games, as he was this season, able to deliver in the pocket. Again, the offensive line, huge credit to them with Nazi Trapillo got the start when Theo Benedette was designated as out for the game. Jonah Jackson, we had Luke Newman get in there and have some reps. So 2 rookies on the offensive line. I get it. It's not the Steelers teams of old, but that's still a pretty stout defense. There's still some studs on there. Any given Sunday, it could be a real tough sled. So it was a really impressive outing for the offensive line for the Bears to go and show recurring themes, that resilience, the defense ultimately on the home field, getting off the field to secure it for the Bears in the win in that late fourth quarter. It's a lot to unpack, Ross, but I talked about Caleb Williams. I talked about the defensive players stepping up. What really stood out to you? What else stood out to you from Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do want to go with the defensive side of the ball first, just because, you went through the injuries, and the litany of guys that were out. And somehow, it was a rocky first half. I think Pittsburgh was really running the football well. They were also gashing the Bears on those, little screen plays and kind of short out routes, to the receivers and the running backs. But they adjusted in the second half, and they only gave up 7 points in the second half. And I think that was huge and instrumental in allowing the Bears to come back into that football game and hold them off for the win. So, I think you heard Ben Johnson in his latest good, better, best speech, next man up. A lot of guys out there that you've never even heard of. They went out there and made plays, right? DeMarco Jackson wore the green dot on defense. You have 15 total tackles, and Brisker had a solid game, and you throw in Nick McLeod, and Nashawn Wright continues to make these heck of just highlight reel plays to get these interceptions. Montez Sweat stepped up like the leader he is to get a couple big plays and sacks and stuff like that. So credit a lot to the defense, and I think credit to Dennis Allen as well. It's not the most talented group on defense this year, but they sure as heck compete hard every game, every snap, and all 4 quarters, and that's what it took. Obviously, usually when we see these games this year, it's the Bears that have the ball at the end. They're trying to go down the field to win it with a field goal or a touchdown, and this time was the opposite. The defense needed to make a play to get them off the field to win the game. So I think credit to them. On the offensive side of the things, it was a bit of a roller coaster day for Caleb Williams. But at the end of the day, a win's a win against a very tough defense, against a feisty defense. TJ Watt on that side of the ball. You see what he can do as a game wrecker, and he made a heck of a play there. I know a lot of people, including myself included, really wanted to place a lot of blame on Caleb for that fumble, for the touchdown. But I also thought Watt he beat Darnell Wright. He whips him around the edge, and he literally had one of Caleb's arms, so he just could not get free to secure that football, for the fumble. That's just what Hall of Fame players do, But I thought Caleb bounced back, and the ability to be able to throw for 3 touchdowns was awesome. Obviously, 2 to DJ Moore, 1 was wide open. I thought the touchdown pass to Colston Loveland was just, that's what you're salivating for as Bears fans with the future when you see that. He's lined up outside. He beats his man. This is a tight end that does this. He beats his man off the break and gets inside position, and Caleb rifles a dot to him for a touchdown pass. It's like, as a defense, how do you guard that? You can't put a linebacker on him. You can't put a safety on him. He's too damn big. And oh, by the way, on that touchdown pass, you had your left tackle there, right? Your rookie left tackle, and then you have your rookie right guard who was in the game as well, Newman, because Jonah Jackson got hurt. So you had Ozzie Trapillo on the left tackle side. You had the right guard who was a rookie in the game, and you threw the touchdown to a rookie, and you're Ryan Poles. You're like, yes, that's exactly what I want to see. Is I finally hit on one of these draft classes almost across the board, and this is the future of my football team. So, again, it wasn't pretty, but another gutsy win. And now, the Bears are 8-3, and the path to 10-11 wins looks a lot more, it looks a little bit, I'm not going to call it easier, but certainly within reach at this point. You got a Philly team that is struggling right now to score some points. You're going to be in their house, but listen, I don't see why the Bears can't win this football game. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but you win this football game on Friday, and not only are you talking about, it goes from can we make the playoffs to can we win this division, which I think will be really, really cool to see. But I was happy that they were able to get a win against a winning football team at home, despite the fact that everything on paper says that they could have, should have lost this football game. I don't care if it was Mason Rudolph at quarterback. You look at the injuries they have on defense right now, and being able to come away with a win like that is a massive, massive plus in the Ben Johnson, Dennis Allen era.
Yeah, I mean, Mason Rudolph with a more pedestrian day, but he is, no slouch. You look at the win-loss record and the way he's stepped in, and again, just the weapons at his disposal, with Gainwell and Warren, and the Bears were able to corral DK Metcalf, who can get loose quickly. Calvin Austin led the receivers with 36 yards, so really kept a lot of these guys in check. Darnell Washington, who can just run guys over. I mean, he may have taken out Hippolyte, but he only had a couple catches on the day for 20-ish yards. I think circling back to the rookies, it's so cool to see finally. And we talked about, in the first couple games, where are these guys at? When are we going to start seeing them? Mm-hmm. There was at one point Trapillo, Newman, Colston Loveland, mm-hmm. and Luther Burden out there, and you're like, whoa, this is great. And all these guys contributing in a big way when you think about, Zacchaeus and Luther Burden kind of fighting for that third spot, and Rome and DJ fighting for the number 1 spot. Yep. It's a good, healthy competition. So cool to see. And Colston Loveland, I know, Ross, you are my go-to in monitoring the Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland comparisons. And who's having a better year. They're both great. Obviously going to be around for a while here, but Colston Loveland is really hitting his stride. And I think, credit goes to certainly Caleb Williams for being able to open it up and make those throws to DJ Moore, to Luther Burden for some big gains, to Rome Odunze when he needs it. There was a lot of just everybody, pitched in. It was for a down day too for DeAndre Swift, who has been a big catalyst for this running game. Calvin Ungai stepped up. They really went away from the run game. They never really got it going. Much momentum, so to speak. Kudos to Ben Johnson and the way he's opened up this playbook and had patience with this Bears offense. And again, with the Steelers having a winning record, towards the top of that division right now. Still to beat another team like that is so impressive. And the defense, again, it's crazy to see, DeMarco Jackson. Read the story about him, calling plays in the mirror, waking up early to do that, and just whatever extra steps of prep that he had to do. And he also has a 6-month-old. We know how hard it is to juggle those responsibilities. But for a guy, in his like third year and just a journeyman type of fella, practice squad guy, to be elevated like that and make that impact, lead the team in tackles. It's a special culture that we're seeing from the Bears now. In terms of the offensive line, I wanted to ask you, Ross, with Trapio and the way he played, Theo Benedette, I think he's questionable earlier in the injury report so far. Is Trapio getting the nod? And if he performs well against the Eagles, are you saying like this is our left tackle of the future? I think you're not mad at having some depth for sure this year, but that's what you draft Trapio for, to be a starting tackle in this league.
That's exactly what you drafted him for. Now, he was a right tackle for most of the time at Michigan State, and they did try him out at left tackle throughout training camp, and he kind of struggled a little bit. But I mean, he's a rookie, and we made the analogy before. When you go from the right side to the left side, it's like trying to wipe your butt, with your left hand after you've been doing it with your right hand for such a long time. It just takes time for these guys, and the game goes so fast as a rookie. And you're trying to, even the off the field stuff, you're trying to find an apartment and get settled in a new city and this and that. And so I think it was great for him to kind of sit and kind of watch everything. And then when his moment came, he played well. I think the knock on him was, he might be able to hold up pretty decent in the passing game, but, what was he going to do in the running game, things like that. I think as a whole, the team struggled to run the football on Sunday, but he graded out very well in both the run and the pass. Now, going against Philadelphia Eagles is a different animal. That is literally the beast of the league. But I think you got to at least give him the opportunity. And I think it'll be one of the biggest wins of the season, despite the fact, of course, we want them to go to playoffs and stuff like that. But if you can come out of this season saying that Ozzie Trapio is your left tackle for the future, that is just a huge win, because that means you don't have to really adjust it in the draft at this point. You talk about Theo Benedette. He now looks more to be like a swing guy, depth and things like that. Luke Newman, we talked about earlier already, as a depth guard, and allows you to focus on more holes that this team has, especially on the defensive line of things. So I'm really rooting for Ozzie. I hope he can go out there playing on the road in a hostile environment against a very liquored up, feisty, throwing batteries at Santa Claus crowd in Philadelphia. That's a true test to see what he's going to be able to do. But it's a guy that played football in the Big Ten. I mean, he's gone to hostile environments. He's gone to Ohio State and Penn State. He's used to crowd noise and things like that. So I got a lot of faith in him. Rooting for the young man. I think Theo is a fine player, but I think he's mostly a backup. You really want Ozzie to hopefully step up and take control of that job. And you talked about too, just Kyle Monangai, that very questionable fumble call, in my opinion, on DeAndre Swift on that fourth down play. I mean, he should have got forward progress. That should have been stopped. But I think at that point, you did see Ben Johnson go more towards Kyle Monangai, and it was more successful. He had 12 carries for 48 yards. His average was 4 yards a clip. Before that, Swift was at 8 for 15 at 1.9. So I think as the weather turns, and especially you play more of these outdoor games, Kyle Monangai is the guy that's going to be more. He's a more physical back. He's the guy that falls forward. He's the guy that churns yards, and you use those three guys that you have in the interior line, and you run him right behind them. And I'd like to see a lot more than that and take some pressure off of Caleb Williams. He doesn't have to throw football 35, 40 times a game at this point.
Yeah, no doubt about it with Monangai. He is that more physical runner. DeAndre Swift kind of splitting time, out of the backfield, and certainly as agile as they come. And we've seen that on display. But with Monangai, the upside he has is he will run between the tackles and don't shy away from that if you're Ben Johnson, right? Mm-hmm. And Luke Newman went to Michigan State. Ozzie Trapio went to BC. And both, obviously playing like at a high level, though, for sure. And Newman, when you really didn't think that he might get any playing time this year, that's still stepping up huge when you have to take over a guard spot and work along the line. And again, you saw the scheming like in goal-to-go situations, just really running behind those big guys and hitting their assignments. It was really cool to see. And blocking has been at the top. And just to circle back to the defense, we know that, Nishan Wright, again, kudos to him. He's him and JC Horn and Kevin Byard are at the top of the league with 5 interceptions each. Tremaine Edmonds, if he didn't go on IR, he's with 4 right now. So this defense just really still has had at least a takeaway every game. And they really, it seems to be that difference maker. So I feel like that's certainly something Dennis Allen is going to coach for this big matchup against the Eagles. Before we dive into that too, the injury status as it is, maybe Jalen Johnson might play, Kyler Gordon. I think, in a dream scenario, you would love for them to be there in addition to TJ Edwards. If they can all go, then you're feeling pretty damn good about your chances there. Jonah Jackson getting back would be very important. And at least Noah Sewell, if you're getting him back. I like, again, I like DeMarco Jackson, but I don't really want him going against Saquon Barkley and seeing AJ Brown across the middle and going up against Jalen Hurts, excuse me. But where you at with the injuries, Ross? What are you feeling? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping they can get at least a couple more of those guys back in the secondary. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, those guys do worry me. I know this Eagles offense isn't quite clicking right now. The fans in Philadelphia are mad at their offensive coordinator, Patullo. They kind of want him out at this point, but that's still AJ Brown over there. That's still Devontae Smith. And those guys can go off at any moment. So I'd like to see them be able to get Kyler back out there on the field, potentially Jalen Johnson. But I think even just getting Kyler back out there will help out a lot, because you can kind of platoon Stevenson, who's been up and down this year, with Wright, and kind of mix around CJ Gardner-Johnson, things like that. The linebacker situation still looks pretty dire right now. TJ Edwards didn't practice today. Granted, it was a walkthrough. With the hamstring situation and the hand situation, I'm still pretty dubious if he's going to be able to give it a go on Friday. Hopefully, you can at least get back Sewell. And, that'd be huge. Obviously, you're going against Saquon Barkley, who can bust one at any time. Pause. But I know I'll never grow up.
Nor should you, right?
But yeah, thank you. But also, for as important Friday is, getting the reinforcements back for the next couple of weeks is equally as important. You got some tough division games coming up here, and if you want to win the NFC North, eventually you're going to have to beat the Packers at least once, and you want to be able to get that game back against the Lions. And you got a Cleveland game coming into town as well. So we definitely want this game. I'm not saying concede Friday, but Ben Johnson, of course, is still thinking long term here of getting out of this game. Yeah, getting out of this game on Friday, relatively unscathed, hopefully with a win, and then really trying to get some reinforcements back and a little bit more extended rest after this.
It's tough, right? With these guys who are like right there, but you think maybe a full week of practice, there's something wasn't quite there for Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson, TJ Edwards, for example. So, you wonder from a training staff standpoint where they're at and getting back to certainly those guys who are on IR, getting back to game speed, super important. And you touched on such an important thing is like, we obviously want to see these Bears beat the Eagles on Friday, but it's a very tough 6-game stretch to end the season, as tough as any team out there. Certainly the division alone. We'll talk about the Packers and the Lions and their road to possibly getting in the playoffs, but Eagles, Packers back-to-back, traveling to Philly and then to Green Bay is very tough. Even as bad as Jordan Love is playing, still in Green Bay, it's tough. Until I see them consistently beating Green Bay, divisional games can get screwy like that. The Browns is like that only guaranteed win, perhaps. You host the Packers. I think it's that Saturday and like 12/20, maybe, whatever that is, December 20th. And then travel to the Niners. And then that Lions game could be very, very important. All that to say, they could go 3-3. They could do better. They could do worse. They could win one of like what the worst case scenario is losing all of them, obviously, but going like 1-5 is perhaps possible, just with how close these games have been and the ways injuries have stacked up. So to that end, I don't want to rush TJ Edwards back. He's outstanding. He's hands down. I mean, the way Tremaine Edmonds had been playing this season at a Pro Bowl level for sure. If the Bears continue this clip, getting like towards the end of the season ready for the playoffs would be huge. Him and TJ Edwards next to each other would be great. Similar to Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson, we figured might miss this entire season.
Sure.
It would just be great to see him get some important playing time, even on a limited basis.
Mhm.
With the Eagles matchup, it's like we talked about. There's a ton of weapons. We know what Nick Sirianni can do, and we know what they can do in short yardage situation. But look at this last game against the Cowboys. They blew a 21-point lead to them. I know it's in Dallas, and I know a lot of people pointed to like the last time the Bears had 8 wins and hosted another team at the top of the NFC. They were at home, like the Rams. The clip had been circulating where Jared Goff threw like 4 interceptions. Different animal completely. Now this team, I don't see as we get into this matchup preview, I don't see them shying away from the game plan and where Ben Johnson is going to have some tricks up his sleeve. He's going to open up that entire playbook. There might be some razzle dazzle, but above all, they're going to try to keep Caleb upright. Maybe you'll see him scrambling a bit more. You know, the Eagles obviously have a lot of talent on defense with Jalen Carter and Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith. They can get after the quarterback, but Caleb Williams has really stood up against all this competition thus far and proved that he is the hardest guy to tackle in the league in the backfield, which is awesome to see. And then defensively, I think, you know, what these teams, how they've been able to beat the Eagles so far and the 3 teams that have beaten them, they've really, contained Saquon, who's had a down year. He can still go off anytime, but it's important to stop the run and not make it short yardage, make Jalen Hurts earn it. Because he's just, his mentality is being a run first quarterback. So if you got to stack, 8 guys in the box, I feel like the Bears will figure that out. And Dennis Allen, as far as scheme and how they want to watch the tape and prepare for the Eagles. But it's outside of AJ Brown. He's just not been able to get these other guys involved. Devontae Smith has kind of just been a flash in the pan type of guy. 2 games really bad, and then 1 game he'll just go off. We know like the personality. AJ Brown doesn't get the targets early. He might quit on this team. So it's a lot to unpack. But what are some other keys you're looking forward to into Friday's matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing is, people forget, Lane Johnson, who's one of the top 3 right tackles in the game. He's out right now. Yeah, he's out for the Eagles. So he's not going to play. This Eagles offense just has not been explosive all year round. We've seen AJ Brown kind of pout. That even goes back to last year, even when they won the Super Bowl. He's reading a book on the sidelines, and this year has been significantly worse. But they've actually been outgained this year in yards by opposing teams. They're just not a very explosive team. What they do is they just kind of wear you down, and they're very methodical, and then they kind of just go for their kill shots, and they do play very sound, very solid defense. Sunday was a very, very weird game, of course, that they lost to the Cowboys. But I think if you're looking at how the Bears are going to play this on Friday, the Bears have been top 5 in the league in explosive plays on offense. And if you want to beat this Philly team, you're going to have to beat them with a few explosive plays. You're going to have to be able to catch them, so to speak, and be able to hit them in the mouth in a couple plays and maybe break a long run or, dial up a trick play, a screen play that gets you downfield. Work Colson Loveland through the middle and see if he can break some tackles. I think this will be a big Luther Burden game, especially with his quick first step and what he's able to do from an explosive standpoint. You've got to keep Caleb Williams clean and upright for him to be able to get this. And then on defense, you force Jalen Hurts to go down the football field and get touchdowns against you. I don't know if he can do it. He hasn't really proved that he can do it this year. The last thing you want to do is let somebody like Devontae Smith or AJ Brown beat you over the top, or you let Saquon Barkley bust one for like 70, 80 yards, right? I think those are the last things you want to do. So for me, if the Bears' mantra this year has been explosive plays on offense, turnovers on defense. If they're able to keep that winning formula, get a couple explosive plays on offense, and force Jalen Hurts to make a mistake, this could be their football game. I think it's going to be a really tight game. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. So 1 or 2 plays in either direction could win this for either team.
Yeah, it feels like it'll be more so like the I More so like that Eagles-Lions game, right? You would think it'd be kind of low scoring along those lines, but who knows? It could easily flip the other way when the Eagles have been at their best. They could put points on the board. Yeah, I'm interested to see the answer for Jalen Carter. We know he's a game wrecker and he can do some things. I feel like with the injuries, you talked about Lane Johnson. That's huge. The Eagles lost Andrew Makuba, who's playing on safety for that defense too. So the defense is susceptible. It's got some weak spots, right? So you figure Ben Johnson and company will pick those weak spots and figure out the best ways to get those talented rookies involved, but don't shy away from Rome and DJ Moore, who's coming off a great game, and the sort of Swiss Army knife that is DJ Moore. But yeah, like you said, Ross, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You got to really pound it with Monungai and establish a run game early. I would expect you want to get off to a hot start in this hostile environment, and then defensively, look to this. This team is really good at getting hats on helmets and really, Kevin Byard with his awareness, able to get those interceptions. Same with Nashawn Wright. If Tyreek Stevenson's involved, he's a key piece in the defensive secondary as well. And just play downhill, play with a lot of passion, right? So it's we haven't seen the Bears on Black Friday yet. And this was on Amazon.
It's on Amazon, so you
right
can
by the fryer.
You can watch Amazon Prime. You can watch the Bears, and then also buy yourself some collagen peptides or whatever you need from Amazon Prime, and they'll be at your house within 6 hours.
That's right. Get you ready for Cyber Monday as well.
Right.
Speaking of, now through Cyber Monday, December 1st, use the promo code HOLIDAY18 for 18% off everything on the Second City Gridiron shop. That is starting on Black Friday all through Cyber Monday. I will post the link here in the messaging, but it's second-city-gridiron-shop.com. And Holiday 18 is the promo for 18% off all our merch. You can get some beer glasses, get some hats, get whatever you need for this holiday season for your loved ones. In terms of the NFL overall, I got to talk about this too, Ross. This is like the hot song on the internet. And I don't know how much you've listened to this song, but it is just being spammed everywhere due to the algorithms. This Bear Down We Came to Win by Go Home Trav. And it's, the story is this is what Tyreek Stevenson's personal photographer or something like that is what I've seen. Made a video. The video is great, but this song just reeks of AI, and I get so sucked into this all the time with like the hip hop soul covers and all this, and all these Bears fans are like, I want to run through a wall. I'm so pumped up. I'm like, this ain't it, man. It's just 100% AI first of all, and I feel like with if you're doing a sort of a parody song or something else. This is Chicago. We have a million musicians. Just networks say, dude, I want to put a song together. You can get Twista in this or somebody if you just reach the right people, and certainly production. Like I know AI is just the easy button, but come on, folks. Like let's just get a better anthem by the time the Bears are making that playoff push. That's my 2 cents. It's my old man hat. Very against our AI overlords. They help me out, but I don't want it affecting my music so much. It's just trash to me.
I completely agree with you. I think the music game now has become an algorithm game for TikTok and what can get clicks, and it kind of panders to the generalization of hip hop and soul and jazz and pop, and it kind of mix matches it together and throws in the pot and spits this out. I think that is a very, very timely rant, because tonight is the documentary for the Shuffle, or the making of the Super Bowl Shuffle as well, which was a very organic, original, thing, and something that you will never see again. A team, before they even won a Super Bowl, says we're going to win a Super Bowl, and a song does a music video about it, wins a Grammy for it, and we are just very far removed from those days. I was speaking with a client today at my job, and he texted me questions, and I could clearly see they were ChatGPT questions. And I called him out. I was just like, You can formulate your own opinion or ask your own questions or something like that. We don't have to rely on technology to try and further us through the world with these kind of things. So I think yes, you and I are millennials, elder millennials. I especially am, and I want to bring back creativity in all of our arts and how we move around and maneuver through the world. So yes, there were old days where we would have contests on sports radio about who can make the funniest parody songs and things like that. We need to get back to those days and get back to original content.
All it takes is a microphone and a few instruments. Like now,
Yeah.
it's so easy to get a mixer for $50 off Amazon or whatever it may be,
Mhm.
and just put some creativity behind it, man. That's
Absolutely.
exactly right, Ross. And yeah,
Absolutely.
look, AI is a great virtual. It's a virtual assistant for you, but you gotta get it past. Give it the human touch. Come on,
Yeah, and there's fun in coming up with something on your own and having some
it is.
original creativity and taking pride in that.
That's huge. It's all about that. And the last week in the NFL, we saw the Patriots improve to 10-2. Lions improved to 7-4. Jahmyr Gibbs exploded for over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just nasty. The Packers 7-3-1 after a win against the Vikings. The Vikings look dead in the water, certainly in the NFC North. Um, we'll talk more about Jordan Love and his pedestrian performances shortly. Seahawks improved to 8-3, and JSN just a monster game there. The Colts beaten in overtime by the Chiefs. They're still alive, 6-5. They're 5-1 at home. They really need to lean on that home field advantage. It appears the Ravens winning 5 straight. They are still alive in that AFC North clash. I feel like for the top of the division, Bengals might be dead, even though Joe Burrow is, I believe, practicing this week.
Coming back.
Shadur Sanders, what's that, Ross?
He's coming back.
Coming back. Oh, he did the. I'm sorry, he did the Cavs jersey post
All right.
with he's back.
Yep.
Better late than never, I suppose. So Browns get their first win under Shadur Sanders against the lowly Raiders, and the hype for Shadur begins. Jaguars won a thriller against the Cardinals, 27-24. Already told you about the Eagles letting that game go, 24-21 against the Cowboys, who really needed that. Awful Saints and Falcons game, and then Baker Mayfield got injured, and just the whole Buccaneers team just got thrashed by the Rams, and that leads me to just really how this NFC sort of playoff picture is shaping up. Like, I cannot sleep on the Rams in the way that they have been playing. Certainly the best record in the league in the league. No, in the
The conference.
conference right now at 9-2. Yeah, New England has 10-2.
Yeah.
One more win just because of that bye week. But the Rams and the way Matt Stafford is playing old man is really incredible. Obviously the Eagles and the Bears kind of breaking into that top 10 rankings this week for sure after improving to 8-3. Undeniable. Tampa. It's just that whole NFC South is trash this year, and Tampa will be limping in even with Baker playing. But the Rams, Ross, I mean, they're every bit the team you thought that you would see from Sean McVay. And I know that, you dealt with the Aaron Donald retirement. You still have Matthew Stafford there. It was very up and down, but the defense playing great. Certainly when you were able to just hold the Bucks to 7 points, and they've really played well on both sides of the ball. And the Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams connection is great for Matt Stafford, Kyron Williams, and whoever's in the backfield. They're just a very balanced team who could cause a lot of problems for the NFC as a whole.
They're the best team right now in the NFC. Like, it's not even close to me. Matthew Stafford has to be the MVP favorite. And, you talk about Puka, you talk about Devontae Adams. I think what Sean McVay has been able to do with that team, especially on offense, you think back to when he first got there and when he first got Matthew Stafford, it was a lot of explosive plays over the top and try and really get down the field quickly, and a lot of almost greatest show on turf. And he's almost completely pivoted to a methodical play action, just chunk it down the field piece by piece and really grind you down. And it's just been very impressive. They play very solid defense. They're good on special teams. They can run the ball when they need to. Stafford has been absolutely outstanding. Like we said, he's got 2 great possession receivers, and they are terrifying. I think the only thing that can make them more scary, they honored Aaron Donald at halftime of that game, and he looks like he can still play. I bet you if McVay called him and said like, "Hey, man, if I gave you 3 weeks, could you get ready and come back for the playoffs?" Who's to say he couldn't? And Bears aside, I think that would be actually kind of cool. If he wanted to be like, I'm just going to come back for the playoffs and see if I can go give me another ring. But he looks fantastic. But yeah, the Rams are awesome. I was a huge fan of that Buccaneers team. They just completely been decimated with injuries. They just have gotten beaten up on both sides of the football. The receivers right now, it's basically Egbuka and a bunch of dudes. Mike Evans is out. Chris Godwin is a shell of himself right now. He can't play. When you look at the running the football, they're still missing Bucky Irving out there. So and now Baker has the shoulder issue. And so you might see Teddy Bridgewater at some point. We'll see if Baker can play on that. And if they're out, you look at the Falcons. I think the Falcons are hot garbage, but they might actually win that division at this point. They're only 2 games behind the Buccaneers, and if it's Bridgewater the rest of the season, I can actually see Kirk Cousins rallying that team and taking over with like maybe 8 wins that division, which would be maybe go 8-9 or something like that, which would win the division, which would be ugly. So, but yeah, the Rams have been absolutely outstanding. They're the best team in the NFC right now, and I don't even think it's close. It's them, and then you've got the group lumped in with the Bears and the Eagles, and you talk about the Packers and stuff like that. The Seahawks are up there as well.
I skipped over the Texans beating the Bills, which was huge.
Yeah.
The Bills now stand at 7-4. They're the 7th seed. Between them and Kansas City, you're like, what the heck is going on in the AFC? And it's again the talking about the best in the league right now. The Patriots are playing such great football. The Broncos and your boy Bo Nix doing great things. The Colts are an offensive and defensive juggernaut. Chargers, a lot of life to them. And again, that the kind of NFC South version of this conference is the Baltimore Ravens. And there's not very much margin for error when Steelers are nipping at their heels, and the Bengals would have to make a hell of a run in dealing with injuries of their own, with T. Higgins out this week and Joe Burrow coming back. But, I really, credit Mike Vrabel. I think maybe it was you who was talking about how things just fall into place at the right time. And Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson, if you imagine they go to different places, different coaching gigs, we might have a different tune on this Bears season as a whole. Same could be said for the Patriots and Drake May and company, but 10-2, really impressive. You figure these teams have very, little playoff experience. Daniel Jones and Drake May and Bo Nix, I guess Bo Nix a little bit, but leaning on just some pretty potent defenses. Drake May is certainly the most accomplished of those quarterbacks in the league right now. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see the Chiefs. All they can do is win at home, and they've lost some really just heartbreaking ones. But the Bills too, as good a season as Josh Allen has been having, he had a phenomenal 6 touchdown game prior to that Texans game, and then goes in, and maybe it's the short week, maybe who knows what it is, but can't really afford those losses at this point if you want to make a run like you did last year and try to get over the hump to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think it also points out, those Thursday games they're weird. They're weird games, and things can happen. I think Houston is a very hostile environment. I was there last year for Bears Sunday Night Football. I tweeted out during that game, it's a lot of stadium I have ever been in. I've been to Lambeau twice and some other stadiums. I think it's very difficult to play there, especially on a primetime game on a short week. So I still like the Bills. I still think they're going to figure it out, but they got some issues as well. Their defense hasn't been that strong. They don't have nearly the skilled players around Josh Allen to be able to make a big play for him. And it's like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7 without him going Superman. They benched now Keon Coleman, who's their first round wide receiver 2 games in a row. So what's going on with that situation? He can't get out there. But I still feel like they're going to be able to scratch and get into the playoffs. But you hit it on the head. The Patriots, they got the easiest schedule in the NFL this year, and they've just been able to coast. It looks like they're going to be able to not only win this division pretty easily, but now they're starting to think about getting a bye week, and they're going to need it too because they just lost Will Campbell, their outstanding rookie left tackle. He just got hurt. They lost another offensive lineman as well during the game on Sunday. And Drake May has already taken more hits than most quarterbacks in the league this year. We've seen him get hurt last year. The last thing you want to do with these last couple of games, and you're trying to wrap up a 1 seed, is see Drake May potentially get a big hit and him get knocked out. So I think that even that Bengals game for them, they didn't want it to be a tight 26-20 game. And it turned out to be a closer game that they wanted. That proved pretty costly because they got some tough injuries in that game. But I still think the Patriots will be in a good spot, but they definitely need to get Will Campbell back out there, hopefully in the next couple of weeks before the playoffs start.
That's a tough loss, but they are, they have a little margin for error with this nice cushion at 10-2 right now. And looking at the scoreboard into what are we in? Week 13. Look at that. We got Thursday, we got Friday, we got Sunday football. The Thursday slate's fun. Packers, Lions, Chiefs, Cowboys, and Bengals, Ravens. I mean, I'm a little biased with the NFC North. And again, we talked about the little margin for error for either of these teams to kind of keep pace with the Bears and maybe get a wild card spot if the Bears continue to stay at the top. That is, this should be a good one. Jordan Love, he's just been real bad with, barely a touchdown a game. And as much as people trashed, Caleb Williams for that throw where he had his arm caught against him with TJ Watt going against him in that game, someone else unearthed a clip of, Love throwing it away in the end zone and throwing it right to a defender who walked in for a touchdown. It's and again, just Jordan Love having a very down season. They're winning 7 games almost in spite of him. Similar to the Chiefs, they're 4-1 at home. Really, road goes through Lambeau, so you kind of give them the edge there. Chiefs already talked about that small margin for error. And the Bengals Ravens, we'll see Joe Burrow, on Thanksgiving. And this Ravens team that might rattle off a 6th win in a row. And then Black Friday, Bears Eagles, of course, maybe the game of the week there, 2 8-3 teams. Texans Colts when you go to Sunday should be a fun one. The Jets need to keep winning. They get a good draw against the Falcons. I should say the Falcons need to keep winning. They get a good draw against the Jets. Reverse that. Rams coast against the Panthers, I think. And then Bills Steelers is a good 325 game. And then we get nothing else, Ross. What else you got?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we get 3 pretty good Thanksgiving games, which is awesome. That means I don't have to talk to my family.
Avoid your much. Family. Go watch football. That's right.
Absolutely. We get. I think that's a huge game. I think for the Packers, man, because if they lose that game in Detroit, things start to get really dicey for them as well. You hit it on the head. Jordan Love just is not playing good football right now, and thank goodness JJ McCarthy exists, or else he could be playing the worst football in the NFC North right now. Even Chiefs Cowboys are sneaky. The Cowboys, ever since they made those a couple trades and they got Quinn Williams, they're also a little bit feistier team as well. I didn't like what CeeDee Lamb did on Sunday. I thought he had a really bad game, but I could see them putting up a fight at home against Kansas City Chiefs, who also really, really need this game. And then if Joe Burrow is playing and Lamar Jackson has not looked good the last couple of weeks, I still don't think he's healthy. But if it's Joe Burrow, he's trying to play spoiler as well, and he's trying to knock out the Ravens, and even the Steelers would appreciate that because they're trying to keep pace with the Ravens for that division. The Sunday games, for me, the marquee game is Texans Colts. I think this Colts team, they came out hot, started strong. But are they pretenders or are they contenders? And you're probably potentially getting back CJ Stroud for this game. I think if the Colts really want to prove that they're a solidified playoff team, they have to win this game at home against their division rival in the Texans. I'm sorry, not the division rival, but against the Texans. And you want to see Daniel Jones get back on track. I think you want to see Jonathan Taylor get back on track. And, the Texans also fighting for the playoffs lives as well. And then the other one for me is just, looking at Bills Steelers. You talked about the Bills. We talked about them coming off that loss against on Thursday night. They really need this game as well, but so do the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's back in Pittsburgh. And that's going to be a big, big 325 game because both those teams are also fighting for the playoff lives right now.
I'm curious to see how the stream turns out because I dropped out completely and just dropped back in. But I'm glad you were able to soldier on, Ross. Thanks for that insight, of course, as always. I'm very pumped for Thanksgiving. On that note too, when you're not deep frying the turkey, what is the side layout looking like? I know you like a good dressing. You don't like a green bean casserole. What are the highlights? Give me a top three, if you will.
It's always traditional. I mean, it's the mac and cheese, it's the collard greens, it's the biscuits, of course. You talked about there's usually a dressing and a stuffing. Of course, we know there's a difference
Sure.
between the two. And then my mother's Puerto Rican, so there's going to be some red beans and rice as well. There's going to be a little bit of a flair there too. And then the dessert selection is always extensive.
Hmm.
And you have yourself a nice cognac, maybe a nice slice of apple pie, or we always get like a caramel cake or something like that. So there's a lot. We usually tend to overdo it, I think, on
Oh, yeah.
Thanksgiving, because it's like how do you cook for like 12 people versus 15, 20? And I'm not a huge leftovers fan. I also don't like it being in my fridge for days upon days. But usually by Black Friday, I'm like, okay, I want a burger already. Like I want some pizza. I can't just keep eating turkey sandwiches and turkey omelets and stuff like that. So usually we also do. I also every year there's a homeless shelter down the street, and I'll just drop the leftovers off to them and say, hey, listen, this is for you guys. Please enjoy.
Man of the people, Ross Reed. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm with you. We actually have not introduced mac and cheese, but I'm doing it this year
Yeah.
as a contribution. We usually get some bacon wrap dates there as far as appetizers. It's tough because I like to do a little grazing before the very early lunch, dinner, supper type deal.
Yeah.
And you talked about the dressing and stuffing must haves, but I do like a cranberry sauce. Man, we put some horseradish in the cranberry sauce. Dynamite. Also,
Mm-hmm.
the pies.
Yeah.
Oh, the pies. A pecan pie is awesome. I do like a good pumpkin. My sister-in-law, I'm forgetting, it's like a cranberry pie as well. That it's very outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Very pumped for it. I don't have much else in terms of I did finish Mr. Scorsese and then which was great.
Ooh.
I recommend you all watch that. And I finished the Eddie doc, which I feel like you undersold. I loved every minute of it, and I feel like I just put on Beverly Hills Cop right after that just
Yeah.
to start an Eddie marathon because a lot of that is on Netflix. But on the Scorsese tip,
Yep.
it's obviously iconic director as we know, but then like the last episode touches on his Leo era,
Yeah.
and to that end Leonardo DiCaprio is just untouchable. And we talk about sort of like elder millennial and just like the way we've been able to see and kind of like uh, see his ascent is pretty unmatched. And the stretch of him starting with the Departed and the Aviator and Wolf of Wall Street and just like the run with Scorsese. Then now we're talking about tying years later. The run in 2000s is just unprecedented. Fast forward to now with one battle after another, which I feel like must win Best Picture at this point, unless they find some indie darling like an Honora, which is also my hot take. I did not like it. I don't think it was. I don't get it. But whatever. It is what it is. It was kind of a weaker class. I would have seen Dune 2 win Best Picture over all that. But that's all to say, again, DiCaprio really in his bag and like again worked with every director that you could ever want at this point. It's interesting, and he's only 51, so you figure he's got his best years ahead of him.
Yep.
That's what I took away from him. And Martin Scorsese is such a treasure. Also, just not slowing down in his 80s at this point. Still has some projects that he wants to put out.
Yeah, I mean, on Leo, I always thought Leo was our version of Paul Newman.
Mm.
The very young guy at the beginning, very attractive man, the eyes, but he can also play. He can play a dirtbag. He can play a suave guy. I look at Paul Newman. He was Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid and The Sting and Cool Hand Luke and Color of Money but then he also won an Oscar later on in his career for The Verdict as an alcoholic. And then you kind of look at Leo, and he literally played an alcoholic dirtbag in one battle and after another, and he might win an Oscar for that. So I think those two careers are very parallel. Scorsese for me is, he has different phases of his life. I think right now he's in that back end of like I can do whatever I want phase because I'm Martin effing Scorsese, and you're going to give me the budget and you're going to allow me to do what I do. And they're all awesome. And I love Killers of the Flower Moon. I love The Irishman, and I love Silence and a lot of the late movies that he had. I think all of us know him best for that late 80s, 90s. For lack of a better term, it was his cocaine run. It was the time when he was doing a lot of cocaine. And you can, if you watch Goodfellas, and if you literally watch the opening credits of Goodfellas, that's cutting fast, and it starts immediately with them in the suit smoking, and then the last 20 minutes of Goodfellas is the most coked out nonsense I've ever seen. And then you realize the director was on coke all the time, and he watched Casino and all those other movies. And I think that was my favorite era of Scorsese. But it's cool to see him do this for such a long time. And it's cool to see his contemporaries also give him the credit and give him the love as well. To see like Brian De Palma in there. We know Brian De Palma has done Carlito's Way, and he's done Scarface. He's worked with Pacino for a lot of movies, and Body Double, and a lot of these other, and Blowout with Travolta, stuff like that. And Paul Schrader is in the documentary as well, another amazing filmmaker too. So I'm glad Scorsese got to do that while he's still here and get his flowers. And I'm glad it was as long as it was, because he deserved it. He makes a 3-hour movie and it's perfect. It's only right that you give him a 4-hour, 4-part documentary as well.
Yeah. And it kind of culminates also with that. It doesn't culminate because obviously there's more after it movies done, but The Departed, him sort of chasing that best director nom, obviously had been in there before, but finally getting it and accepting the award from, I think it was Spielberg and Francis Ford Coppola and just all these peers who he had loved and worked with and revered for a long time. So just a hell of a career and a hell of a documentary on that run. Up next, the John Candy one. But that's for another time. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening in. Follow at Second City Gridiron for all the Bears news. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you don't already. Spotify, iTunes, subscribe, tell a friend or two. At WC Gridiron on social media for other news, and also the write-ups on Windy City Gridiron. I'm at The Real Evan Mack. Ross is at Ross Reed. Let's give a Bears-Eagles prediction before we go.
I got to take the loss in this one. I'm going to go Eagles 17, Bears 10. Low-scoring game, but they take a loss.
17-10. Like it. I don't like the outcome, but a low-scoring game it very well may be. I'm going to take the Bears 21-18. I think they might just edge it out, and they've had these 3-point wins back to back to back, kind of just great performances last minute. So let's see another in a Black Friday miracle. I hope for a good game, and I wish you all very well. We're thankful for our great fans. Thankful for my boy Ross over there. Don't burn yourself with the turkey, my man. For now, be good to each other out there. So long, everybody.